Some people ruin themselves trying to compete with someone who is not even competing. That line sums up exactly what is happening around you right now. The moment you stepped into your true energy, the whole atmosphere around you shifted quietly, effortlessly, without you lifting a finger. And suddenly, people who were never paying attention before are now scrambling to copy your rhythm, like they are rehearsing for a performance you did not audition them for. It is almost funny, because they do not even realize they are exposing themselves. They are trying to match a frequency that does not come from hype, drama, or performance. It comes from the way you think, the way you move, and the way you have learned to survive. Here is a fact most people never acknowledge. Humans are wired to imitate what intimidates them. When they cannot understand the source of someone's power, they try to recreate the surface of it. That is why their attempts always look a little exaggerated, a little offbeat, a little goofy, because they are reacting to an energy they do not have the internal foundation to carry. It is like someone trying to copy a lion's roar when they have only ever meowed their whole life. They try, sure, but the sound comes out sideways. What makes this moment even more incredible is that you are not out here trying to impress anybody. You are not pushing, performing, or begging for recognition. Your energy is simply calibrated differently. Your growth did not happen on the timeline they expected, and now it is shaking up their sense of identity. They see you evolve. They feel the shift, and suddenly they are scrambling, studying you like a manual, while pretending they are naturally built like this. This is why the whole scene looks so wild. You are operating from an inner ecosystem that is stable and self-built, while they are operating from borrowed moves and recycled confidence. And the more they try to keep up with you, the more obvious it becomes that you are not in the same league, not in the same lane, and not powered by the same source. So let us get into it, because the way they are trying to match your energy right now, it is giving comedy, confusion, and accidental self-exposure all at once. Number 1. They are exhausting themselves because they are responding to a frequency you were born with, not a skill you learned. Some people think matching your energy is like copying someone's style or habits. They assume if they walk like you, talk like you, or mimic your confidence, they will somehow show up on your level. What they do not understand is that your energy is not something you picked up from the world. It is something that was already in you long before you knew how powerful it was. You did not study a formula. You grew into yourself. You did not rehearse your presence. It developed through the way your mind works, the way your emotions operate, and the way your spirit responds to life. That is why they tire themselves out. They are trying to echo something that is not coming from the surface of who you are, but from the core. Your energy has layers, and most people only see the outer one. They see the confidence, but not the internal battles you settled. They see the calm, but not the resilience you built. They see the direction, but not the self-awareness you fought for. When they try to match what they see, they miss everything that actually makes it powerful. And because they are copying the final product instead of the internal process, their version always collapses under pressure. They can imitate your tone, but not your inner balance. They can imitate your moves, but not the mindset behind them. The truth is, your frequency was shaped by things they avoided. Your clarity came from experiences they never confronted. Your presence was shaped in moments they ran from. So while they are busy studying your last move, they do not realize your energy comes from how you understand yourself, not how you perform for others. And that is why they look drained, while you look natural. You are flowing in something authentic, something you did not borrow, something that synced with who you really are. They are fighting for something that is not theirs, And that fight alone exposes the difference. They can keep trying, but without your inner foundation, they will always fall short, because your energy is not a costume they can put on. It is a frequency they were never built to hold. Number 2. They keep failing because they are competing with someone who is not even participating in the race. When people try to match your energy, they forget one essential truth. You are not playing the game they think you are. They are out here sprinting, pushing, pressing, forcing every move, like they are locked in a competition that has a finish line, a medal, and an audience waiting to clap. But you are not even on that track. You are moving on a different timeline, guided by a different motive, powered by a different understanding. And that is why their efforts collapse before they even get close. They treat your presence like it is something to defeat or earn, when actually it is something to witness. They are judging themselves against a standard they do not understand. And that alone guarantees failure. They chase intensity, but you are steady. They chase hype, but you are grounded. They chase approval, but you are self-sufficient. When someone is measuring themselves against a version of you that is not built for comparison, they cannot help but look desperate, confused, or flat-out goofy. They are fighting a battle with the wrong enemy and using the wrong weapons. What makes it even deeper is that you are not trying to stand out. You are not on a mission to outperform. You are not waking up every day thinking, "How can I be better than everyone else?" You are simply aligned with yourself, and alignment has a presence all its own. When someone operates from alignment, it reads as power, even when they are doing nothing dramatic. But when someone operates from insecurity, it reads as panic, even when they are trying to look calm. So they keep failing, not because they are weak, but because they are misplaced. They are chasing a shadow of something they do not have access to, and no amount of copying or forcing can bridge that gap. You cannot compete with someone who is not competing, and you cannot outdo someone who is not measuring themselves in the same currency. In the end, their failure is actually proof of your uniqueness. The moment they realize you are not in their race, they will either stop running or finally start walking their own path. Until then, the whole performance will keep looking like what it is: a frantic chase after something that cannot be caught, because it was never meant to be. Number 3. They misuse your blueprint because they copy the results without surviving the process. When people try to match your energy, they act like it is a recipe they can steal from the finished dish. They look at the outcome, your confidence, your calm, your presence, and think they can just copy those ingredients and get the same flavor. What they never stop to ask is this: how did that dish get cooked in the first place? What fire did it sit in? What pressure did it withstand? What mistakes shaped it before it became something they now want to imitate? Your energy is not built from the highlights they can see. It is built from the silent struggles they never witnessed. It is built from the nights you questioned yourself and still showed up in the morning. It is built from the moments you were afraid and acted anyway. It is built from boundaries you learned the hard way and lessons you paid for with time, heartbreak, or humility. They skip all of that, grab the surface, and wonder why it tastes flat. Copying results without surviving the process is like wearing someone else's armor without training in it. It looks impressive until the moment real pressure hits, and then it falls apart because it was never conditioned on their body. They can repeat your words, mimic your posture, fake a tone, but they cannot replicate the internal discipline that gives those things meaning. Without the backbone underneath, it is just decoration. And this is where it gets painfully obvious to anyone who is paying attention. When you have earned something, it sits on you naturally. When you are faking something, it sits on you like a borrowed coat 2 sizes too big. That is why their attempts come off as forced, loud, or unstable. They are chasing a maturity they never built, a clarity they never fought for, and a self-trust they have never tested. The deeper truth is that your energy cannot be reverse-engineered, because it is not mechanical. It is organic. It grows through trial, reflection, failure, and honesty. It is shaped by choices they have not made and courage they have not discovered yet. So they will keep misusing the blueprint, keep building hollow versions, keep collapsing under pressure, and keep looking puzzled as to why it never hits the same. Meanwhile, you keep moving. Not because you are performing, but because you are living the process every single day. And no one can copy a journey they have not walked. Number 4. Their desperation exposes the imbalance. They seek validation from the same world you have outgrown. When people try to match your energy, what they are really chasing is not you. They are chasing the approval of a world that still controls them. They want to be seen, recognized, applauded, accepted, and celebrated because those things still feel like life or death to them. Meanwhile, you have already passed through that season. You have already learned that applause cannot hold you steady, that attention cannot build you, and that validation is too unstable to build an identity on. And that difference shows immediately. Desperation is loud even when it is silent. It leaks through the forced smiles, the exaggerated confidence, the copy-paste behaviors, the sudden transformation that feels more like panic than growth. When someone is still tethered to external approval, every action becomes performative. They are not acting out of truth. They are acting out of fear. Fear of being overlooked, forgotten, irrelevant. And when that fear collides with someone who no longer plays that game, it creates a spectacle they cannot hide. You, on the other hand, move from a place of internal stability. You do not need the crowd to tell you you matter. You do not need strangers to crown you. You do not need likes, praise, or imitation to feel alive. That independence is what they are actually reacting to, even if they cannot articulate it. Your calm challenges their chaos. Your certainty highlights their insecurity. Your self-trust exposes the cracks they have been covering for years. The funniest part is that their desperation is not a weakness. It is information. It reveals exactly how imbalanced their foundation is. When someone wants to mirror you so badly, it is because they have not discovered their own center yet. They are borrowing energy they cannot generate, borrowing identity they cannot sustain, borrowing confidence they cannot source from within. And because they are building on borrowed ground, the whole structure shakes even with the smallest breeze. Meanwhile, you keep walking like nothing heavy ever touched you, not because life spared you, but because you learned how to stop outsourcing your worth. That is why their efforts look like strain. And yours look like ease. One is chasing approval in a world that keeps moving the finish line. The other has already stepped off the track entirely. And that gap, no amount of copying can close it. Number 5. They cannot match your energy because yours is built on inner alignment, not outer performance. Most people do not realize that what they call energy is usually just performance. They think if they raise their voice, walk a certain way, throw in some confidence, and act like they are unshakable, they can create the same effect someone else has naturally. But real energy is not an act. It is not choreography. It is not charisma you can buy or copy. Real energy is the visible result of internal alignment. And alignment cannot be faked, because it is a deep conversation between who you are and how you choose to show up. When you are aligned, your thoughts, emotions, and actions stop fighting each other. Your purpose stops wobbling. Your presence stops needing decoration. You do not have to convince anyone because you have already convinced yourself. That kind of coherence radiates. even when you are quiet, even when you are still, even when you are doing nothing dramatic. It is like a calm hum under everything you say and do, and people feel it even if they cannot name it. The people trying to match that cannot, because their inner world is chaotic, while their outer world is busy pretending it is not. They patch insecurity with bravado. They mask confusion with noise. They cover doubts with sudden bursts of confidence that collapse the moment life pushes back. Alignment is like stacking bricks on solid ground. Performance is like stacking cards on a windy table. It might look impressive for half a second, but it will never last. And this is where the humor slips in. You can always tell when someone is performing because they get tired way faster than you do. They are sweating to look like they have mastered life while you are just living it. They bend, they stretch, they exaggerate, they overcompensate, and you are sitting there wondering how a human can burn so much energy trying to seem effortless. Inner alignment also carries honesty. When you are aligned, you do not need to pretend. When you do not need to pretend, people trust you without being told to. When people trust you, they feel safe around you, drawn to you, influenced by you, and they have no idea why. Meanwhile, the imitator cannot create trust, because trust can only grow from authenticity, not imitation. So they can keep trying. They can keep acting. They can keep rehearsing. But they cannot enter a space they have never built inside themselves. Your energy is not something they can copy. It is something they have to earn. And until they do, every attempt will look exactly like what it is. A big, enthusiastic, very goofy shortcut that goes nowhere. Number 6. You trigger them because you remind them how small their world becomes when they stop growing. Some people get uncomfortable around you, not because you are too much, but because you expose something they have been avoiding: their own stagnation. Growth is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, personal, and invisible to everyone, except the people who are not growing at all. When they see you expanding emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or even just in confidence, it shines a light on the walls they have been circling for years without noticing. When someone stops growing, their world gets smaller. Even if their ego gets louder, they stop learning, stop reflecting, stop taking responsibility, stop stepping into uncertainty, and eventually they stop seeing possibilities. Life becomes a loop. Comfort turns into confinement. And when someone like you walks in carrying forward momentum they no longer have, it feels like disruption. Not because you are judging them, but because they are judging themselves. This trigger is not about envy or jealousy most of the time. It is deeper. It is grief. You remind them of the version of themselves they never invested in. You remind them of dreams they shelved, courage they declined, skills they avoided, changes they thought they would get to later, and later never came. So when they watch you evolve, it is like staring at a mirror they cannot break. And they react in the only way they know how: mimicry, panic, forced growth, and sometimes even hostility. The funniest part is that they think they are reacting to you when they are actually reacting to their own arrested development. They try to match your energy, but what they are really chasing is the feeling of being alive again, of being capable again, of being in motion again. But because they did not build that muscle, everything feels foreign, heavy, and frankly a little tragic comical to witness. Meanwhile, you keep growing not to impress anyone, but because growth has become your default state. When progress is normal to you, you stop expecting applause and start expecting clarity. When clarity becomes normal, you stop being shaken by people who cannot keep up. So when they get triggered, remember, it is not about you being overwhelming. It is about them realizing, maybe for the first time, that staying the same is not neutral. It is shrinking, and no one likes facing that truth, especially when it is walking around in front of them, looking calm, centered, and absolutely unbothered. Number 7. They look goofy because they are borrowing confidence instead of building it. Confidence is one of those things everyone wants, but very few actually earn. And when someone has not built it from the inside out, they try to loan it from the outside in. They copy tone, posture, swagger, humor, boldness. Anything they think will convince the world they have got it together. But borrowed confidence always shows its seams. It creaks under pressure. It wobbles when questioned. It collapses the moment life stops applauding. When you build confidence, it usually comes from surviving yourself, from making mistakes and not folding, from speaking up even when your voice shook, from learning, failing, adjusting, and showing up anyway. That kind of confidence sits in your bones. It does not need to shout. It does not need to compete. It walks quietly into a room, and people feel it without being told. Borrowed confidence, on the other hand, is like someone wearing jewelry they cannot afford. It glitters, but it is artificial, and everyone can tell it is not theirs. They overcompensate, overperform, oversell. They laugh too loud, act too bold, pretend too hard. And the irony is that the harder they try, the more transparent the act becomes. Confidence that is real feels calm. Confidence that is fake feels frantic. This is why they look goofy next to you. Even when they are trying their absolute best, you are not performing. You are inhabiting yourself. They are not inhabiting anything. They are auditioning for a role they have not rehearsed, and audiences can always tell the difference between someone speaking from truth and someone reading from a script. Another thing people miss is that real confidence can coexist with humility, softness, and uncertainty. You can be powerful and gentle at the same time. You can speak slowly and still command attention. You can admit mistakes and still be respected. When someone's confidence is borrowed, those combinations feel impossible, so they avoid them altogether and stick to the caricature version. So when you watch their attempts and cannot help but smile, it is not cruelty. It is clarity. You are witnessing the gap between someone who has walked through fire and someone who has only watched it on social media. They can keep borrowing all they want, but confidence cannot be rented. It cannot be mimicked. It cannot be downloaded. It can only be grown. And until they do that work, their energy will always look like what it truly is: a loud costume that does not fit, worn by someone still learning how to stand in their own skin. Number 8. They mimic your moves but never your timing. And that is where they keep embarrassing themselves. Timing is the silent skill no one teaches and no one can copy. People can watch what you do, but they cannot feel when you do it. They can imitate a gesture, repeat a phrase, echo a style, but they cannot step into the rhythm that governs your choices. And that gap between action and timing is where their imitation always cracks. When you are aligned with yourself, you move when it is right, not when it looks impressive. You speak when it is needed, not when it looks bold. You hold back when restraint is strength, and push forward when courage is required. That instinct is not learned from tutorials or observation. It is built from awareness, maturity, and deep familiarity with your own mind. It is the kind of skill that works even when you are unaware it is working. But the imitator, they are stuck playing catch-up. They see a move after it has already created its impact, and then they try to reproduce it in a moment that no longer fits. It is like dancing to a beat they can hear, but cannot feel. They are always half a second off. And that half second is everything. What would look powerful in the right moment looks clownish in the wrong one. What would feel authentic when it rises naturally feels forced when pulled out of a checklist. This is why their attempts backfire. They think results are created by actions alone, so they copy actions. They do not realize results come from a combination of intention, context, emotion, and timing. Without those, their moves float in empty space, disconnected from meaning, and everyone can sense it even if they cannot explain it. There is also a deeper truth. Timing is tied to identity. When you know who you are, you know when to act because you know why you act. When someone does not know themselves, they act at random, chasing applause, chasing relevance, chasing anything that feels like purpose. So when they embarrass themselves, it is not because they are incapable. It is because they are imitating someone whose internal clock they cannot access. You cannot mimic instinct. You cannot mimic self-knowledge. You cannot mimic the harmony between thought, feeling, and action. All they can do is repeat motions outside of meaning. And that always shows. Meanwhile, you keep moving in time with yourself, calm, steady, unbothered, because real presence is not about looking good. It is about being in tune with your own life, and no one can copy that, no matter how hard they try. Number 9. They cannot grasp that your energy is expensive because it was paid for with experiences they avoided. People love to talk about energy like it is something you can pick up off a shelf or copy off a screen. But the truth is, real energy has a price tag, and most people cannot pay it because they are not willing to walk through what it costs. Your energy did not come from inspiration. It came from endurance. It did not come from watching others. It came from surviving yourself. Every time you felt alone and kept going, that paid into your presence. Every time you made a choice that scared you and did it anyway, that paid into your clarity. Every time life pushed you down and you stood up without turning bitter, that paid into your calm. Every time you swallowed pride, spoke truth, broke a habit, or chose growth over comfort, that paid into something they cannot see, but everyone can feel. When they look at you, they only see the surface, the confidence, the composure, the direction. What they miss is the invisible ledger underneath. They miss the tears no one saw, the mistakes no one heard about, the discipline no one applauded, the self-confrontation that humbled you, the courage that rewired you. Those experiences are the real currency. Without them, what they are trying to mimic is like trying to quote wisdom they have not lived. They avoided the storms, they avoided responsibility, they avoided honesty, they avoided discomfort, they avoided growth, and because they avoided all that, they also avoided the transformation that comes after. So when they feel drawn to your energy, they mistake attraction for possibility. They think they can skip the price and still get the product. But life does not work like that. You cannot cheat your way into depth. You cannot cosplay maturity. You cannot rehearse resilience. You cannot download courage. These things are earned in real time, with real consequences, with real self-awareness, and with real sacrifice. That is why their attempts always feel cheap next to yours. Not because they are weak, but because they are underfunded. They are trying to spend a currency they never earned. And until they are willing to walk through what you walked through, they will keep looking like someone wearing a luxury coat they found in a thrift store, impressive at a distance, but falling apart up close. Meanwhile, you carry your energy like a veteran carries stories, quietly, naturally, and with a weight no imitation can hold. Number 10. They perform strength while you carry resilience, and that is why the gap cannot be closed. Strength is something people can act out. It is loud, visible, dramatic, easy to imitate. You can throw on a posture, raise a chin, speak bold, pretend you are unfazed, and convince a crowd for a moment that you are built like stone. But resilience cannot be performed because it is not about how you look when things are calm. It is about how you behave when everything is falling apart and no one is watching. When someone performs strength, they are showing you the highlight reel. They are giving you the edited version, the confident line, the tough expression, the I am fine tone. But you can always tell when it is performance, because it breaks under the smallest pressure. A challenge comes, a contradiction appears, a failure hits, and suddenly all that strength melts into panic, defensiveness, or silence. Resilience is different. Resilience is built in the long stretches no one posts online. It is built in the decisions you made when you could have quit and did not. It is built in learning from mistakes instead of hiding them. It is built in staying soft enough to grow and tough enough not to collapse. It is not flashy, but it is unshakable. It moves slowly, steadily, and with purpose, because it has been tempered in real fire. This is why they cannot close the gap no matter how hard they try. They can mimic the pose, but they cannot mimic the history. They can copy the tone, but they cannot copy the endurance. They can shout, but they cannot stay standing when the noise dies and life asks something deeper of them. There is also something ironic and almost humorous about it. People who perform strength burn themselves out quickly. They get tired, stressed, overwhelmed, defensive, brittle. Meanwhile, resilience feels almost peaceful. When you have already been through storms, everyday weather stops feeling like a threat. When you have rebuilt yourself once, you stop fearing collapse. When you have confronted your own weaknesses honestly, you stop being shaken by anyone else pointing them out. So the gap is not about superiority or competition. It is about foundation. One is a mask you can buy and wear for attention. The other is a muscle you can only build by living. And that is why, even when they try their absolute best, even when they push until they strain, even when they pretend until it hurts, they will always look like they are acting next to someone who simply lived. Number one. They are uncomfortable around you because you operate from clarity while they operate from comparison. Clarity has a way of unsettling people who have built their whole identity on measuring themselves against others. When you walk into a space knowing what you stand for, what you want, and what you will not tolerate, it shifts the atmosphere without you trying. Your decisions make sense even when they are simple. Your presence feels steady even when you are quiet. Your direction is visible even when you are not explaining it. And for someone who lives in comparison, that kind of internal coherence feels like exposure. Comparison is a noisy way to live. It keeps people constantly checking their reflection in everyone else's success, confidence, happiness, or progress. They do not know who they are because they have outsourced the definition of themselves to the world. So when they meet someone who is not checking anyone else's score, it rattles them. It highlights the emptiness beneath their chase. You, on the other hand, are not guessing at yourself. You are not polling the room. You are not rewriting your purpose every time you see someone doing better. Your clarity comes from honest self-inquiry, from setting boundaries, from learning what actually matters to you instead of what impresses others. That kind of clarity is rare, and rare things always make the unprepared uneasy. The humor in all this is that they think the discomfort is about you being too confident or too different, when really it is about them feeling like they are standing on a shaky foundation while you are standing on bedrock. They are so busy watching everyone else's journey that they never started their own. And being around someone who has is like watching a documentary they did not sign up for but cannot stop sitting through. When clarity speaks, it forces people to confront questions they have been dodging. What do I actually want? What am I working toward? Why am I chasing someone else's version of success? Why do I feel invisible unless I am competing? Those questions cannot be answered with borrowed energy or copied moves, so their discomfort is not aggression or jealousy. It is awareness they are not ready for yet. And until they stop comparing and start building, being around someone aligned, grounded, and self-defined will always feel like standing under a light they are not ready to step into. Meanwhile, you keep moving with purpose, not to intimidate, but simply because clarity has become your way of life. Number 12. They study you like a manual because you disrupt the systems they built around pretending. When someone has spent years building a version of themselves meant to impress, protect, or avoid judgment, they create systems, scripts, masks, behaviors, triggers, responses, performances. Those systems keep them safe because they never have to show what is actually underneath. They can stay in control as long as the performance works. But when they meet someone who is not playing that game, it short-circuits them. You walk in without a script. You show up without a mask. You speak from honesty, even when it is simple. You carry yourself with a grounded ease that cannot be rehearsed. And suddenly, their carefully designed systems fail them. They cannot categorize you. They cannot predict you. They cannot outsmart you. They cannot mimic you cleanly. So they hover. They analyze. They dissect. They study you like you are a textbook they forgot to study for. What they are really studying is the absence of pretending. They are staring at something they have never experienced. A person whose external behavior matches internal truth, that destroys the whole structure they have been living in because it proves something they have been denying. Authenticity is not weakness, and honesty is not chaos. And presence does not require theatrics. The funny part is that their studying only deepens their confusion. They take notes on behaviors but miss essence. They copy patterns but miss purpose. They imitate movements but miss meaning. It is like reading the ingredients list without ever tasting the food. They can repeat the steps and still end up with something that does not even resemble what they wanted. Meanwhile, you are not even aware you are being studied. You are simply being yourself. And that alone is enough to expose how much pretending they have been doing. When someone stops pretending, it becomes a mirror. And mirrors are uncomfortable for people who have been living in costumes for too long. This is why they get rattled. This is why they look goofy. This is why their attempts feel hollow. Because authenticity is not a technique. They cannot learn it from watching you. They cannot reverse engineer it. They cannot cheat their way into it. Authenticity can only be built by removing the mask, not copying someone else's face. And until they do that, they will keep studying you, chasing you, copying you, while missing the one lesson you cannot teach. Stop pretending, and you will finally stop looking like you are acting. Number 13. Their need to match your energy shows they have never discovered their own. There is something deeply revealing about someone who feels pulled to mimic another person's energy. It is not admiration. It is not inspiration. It is a confession. It says, without speaking a word, I do not know who I am. So I will borrow who you are until I figure it out. And that truth shows up in every exaggerated move, every sudden shift in personality, every dramatic burst of confidence that does not quite land. When you discover your own energy, you stop needing reference points. You stop needing templates. You stop needing to look around for permission or direction. Your presence becomes a byproduct of self-understanding, not self-consciousness. You act because it aligns with you, not because it impresses someone else. And when someone grows like that, it radiates in a way no imitation can reproduce. But when someone has not discovered themselves, they feel like they are walking through life without a compass. Everything feels uncertain. Everything feels like guesswork. Every interaction becomes a test they might fail. So when they see someone who seems sure, grounded, authentic, or powerful, they latch onto it the way a ship in fog latches onto a lighthouse. They think if they can copy the light, they will feel safe too. The problem is that identity is not something you can photocopy. You cannot borrow it. You cannot rent it. You cannot imitate it long enough to make it yours. Identity grows slowly through honesty, mistakes, curiosity, and courage. It grows when you stop asking, "How should I act?" and start asking, "Who am I when no one is watching?" Most people run from those questions because they require patience and discomfort. So their frantic need to match your energy is not about you at all. It is about the void they are afraid to admit exists inside them. And the deeper irony is this: the more they chase your energy, the further they drift from their own. They become a mirror reflecting someone else instead of becoming something real. You, meanwhile, do not have to chase anything. Your energy is an extension of you, not a costume you can take off at night. And that is why it touches people, anchors people, inspires people, and sometimes unnerves people. In the end, their copying is actually a sign of hope, because wanting what you have is the first spark that can lead them to building what they never realized they could have on their own. All they have to do is stop copying long enough to start discovering. Number 14. They look goofy because your presence makes imitation impossible. You do not project energy, you shift environments. Most people think energy is something you show. They treat it like a spotlight they can switch on and off, like a performance they can rehearse and repeat. But what they miss is that real presence is not projected. It is catalytic. It changes the temperature of a room without effort. It moves conversations without forcing them. It steadies people without lecturing them. It is not something you broadcast. It is something you carry, and people feel it before they even understand it. When someone has that kind of presence, they do not need to raise their voice or posture or invent confidence. The environment responds to them because their internal state is coherent, honest, and grounded. That coherence interacts with other people, and it shifts the whole space. This is why some people walk into a room and everything feels different, even though they have not said a single word. Now, imagine someone trying to imitate that. They can copy actions, but they cannot copy impact. They can imitate gestures, but they cannot imitate atmosphere. They can try to act calm, but they cannot create calm. They can try to act powerful, but they cannot make other people feel safe or seen or respected just by existing. Those effects come from depth, not decoration. So when they try, it is like watching someone fake gravity. They jump, they flail, they strain, they exaggerate, and the environment stays exactly the same, because you cannot fake something that comes from alignment, experience, honesty, and self-awareness. The result is always the same. They look goofy, not because they are ridiculous, but because they are chasing something that cannot be copied from the outside in. The funniest part is that you are not even doing anything extraordinary. You are simply integrated. Your mind, emotions, and actions are aligned enough that people feel it like a low-frequency vibration they cannot tune out. And when someone without that integration tries to replicate the effect, it is like trying to imitate a storm by shaking a watering can. so they can keep trying. They can keep studying. They can keep rehearsing. But until they build the internal structure that naturally shifts environments, their imitation will always stop at the surface. Meanwhile, you continue walking through life, not projecting energy, but altering space effortlessly, unmistakably, and in a way no copycat can ever reproduce. When you zoom out and look at all of this, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. What people are chasing is not your personality. It is your alignment. They are not drawn to how you act, but to how you have grown. They are not copying you because you are cool, but because you remind them of a version of themselves they never learned how to build. And no matter how hard they imitate, no matter how loud they perform, no matter how many moves they borrow, they cannot replicate something that was earned in silence, lived through chaos, shaped by honesty, and maintained by self-awareness. Your energy is not a trend. It is not a costume. It is not a trick. It is the outcome of choices, endurance, clarity, resilience, identity, and growth. It is the invisible work that shows up as visible presence, and that is why they look goofy, tired, desperate, or out of sync. They are chasing a destination without walking the road. Let this be the reminder hidden underneath all the noise. You do not have to compete, perform, or imitate anyone to be powerful. You do not have to explain yourself to be understood, and you definitely do not have to chase energy when you can build it. Keep being aligned. Keep being real. Keep being you, because that alone is more disruptive, more inspiring, and more magnetic than anything they can imitate. If this spoke to you, do not keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Drop a comment with what point hit you hardest, and share it with someone who needs that reminder today. Your support keeps this content alive, and I appreciate every single one of you. Stay blessed always.